being right in the center of the country, our sense of place, we've got woodlands, we have lakes, we've got streams, we've got, you know, prairies, like all that type of thing, and I want to highlight, the best of those things.
On some of these are just beautiful.
I'm from Missouri, so when I think about food, I think about, you know, fried morels in the springtime. I grew up with that. I think about trout fishing with my dad, and I want to serve trout. I think about deer hunting with my dad, and I want to serve venison in the fall. Like, I always think of like those life experiences that I want to convey through the plate. I think that's kind of like my duty as a farm to table or locally sourced chef is to kind of like highlight the best of Missouri, right? And we should be proud of where we're from. I'm a 90s kid. Used to get off the school bus and I had to stay in the house until my mom got home before I could like go out and play with my friends. So at that time, the Food Network was huge. You had like Emeril Lagasse and Bobby Flay and Mario Batali, and those guys were, real popular on that. So I would like get off the school bus and get a snack and watch, the Food Network until like my mom got home, and then I could go out and play with my friends. So I was always kind of intrigued by like that chef thing. My mom and dad said, you got to get a job. And it's like, what do you do? It's pretty easy to get a dishwashing job. A weekend, the fry guy didn't show up, and they were like, Philip, do you want to, stop washing dishes and go fry some French fries? And I was like, sure. That's really how the kitchen started for me, and started liking the culture of the kitchen. I'm kind of a quiet guy. I always had like a couple really good friends, but not like a huge friend group. The kitchens are kind of like that. So really took to like that little, it's almost like a little family of the kitchen. And there was a little restaurant called Fireside that was opening in Umeowie. There was some real cooking going on there, and he had, taught me how to make like these like classic French sauces like bechamel and that kind of thing, and hollandaise, and how to like hit temperatures on steaks and like that kind of stuff. And he told me one day, he was like, hey, if you want to really learn how to cook, you need to go work for the Frenchies, is what he called them. And I was like, okay, who's that? And there was this French chef in St. Louis named Marcel Caraval. He owned a restaurant called Café de France and Le Berge Breton. When you talk about like really like getting, yelled at and things like that, Gordon Ramsay style, except for like, you can understand Gordon Ramsay. You can't understand that French accent when they're yelling at you. Like half of it was English, half of it was French. Started there making like salads and doing that kind of thing, and then worked my way all the way up to sous chef there. I don't think I ever missed a day working for him. I've always studied other chefs, like I've got a lot of cookbooks, and like I really fell in love with the French Laundry cookbook when I was a kid. That style of dining of these like top French chefs and that type of thing like was completely foreign to me. But when I like started reading about them, and it's like I couldn't get enough information about it. It was just like mind blowing to me, like the experience that those places have. And I really started studying it and like, buying every book that I could. And eventually was like, I want to do something like that someday. And all that time, like got married, had kids. And as my son was coming around, I decided that, with a family, I needed more set hours. So I started looking for gigs, and I took like the first head chef job that I could find, which was the Rack House. I ended up staying there for 5 years.
Yeah, what's the eggplant look like, honey?
I
Because
think
you had asked me about eggplant. Is that something you were thinking about for August, maybe?
Yeah. Eggplant. What about what do you have? Peppers? Shishito peppers then?
Well, we've only got.
That's all you got.
Yeah, that's all we got. That's what's getting.
The idea of chefs, using local farms and stuff started, obviously that's originally how things work. You go to the market, especially in France, you go to the market, what's in the market, and then you would take that stuff back to your kitchen, and that's what you would cook for the day. Those are awesome.
I was like,
Can I have those?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was like, don't you really use sugar when you cook with blackberries anyway?
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Ryan and Darlene from Lucky Dog Farm, we started using their products. I went to high school with them, so I knew them very well. Everything doesn't have to come from a, giant conglomerate company, Remembering that there's families out there that are trying to make a living, I kind of feel like it's our duty to help, support those families by buying their products. Started using JT from Mushrooms Naturally. So I started building these relationships with farmers and local purveyors, creating this like community of helping each other out. With Lucky Dog, Ryan and Darlene, I buy my product from them, and they come and eat here when it's their special occasion. So it's like a reciprocal type thing,
Or you might walk down here. Zucchini will not use the yellow.
Really?
I was like, Mom, they're yellow zucchini. Well, I just like the green. You like green.
John and Bridget came to me and said, we would like to open another location. And John said probably a 3 to 5 year plan. And about 3 months later, we had another restaurant. So we went from 3 to 5 years to about 3 months. I was running 2 restaurants, and I was literally driving back and forth daily to one restaurant and, like put my rack house hat on. Now I'm the chef of I would say like a whiskey bar with like a lot of wine, and like we're doing upscale bistro food, and then like drive back to Tompkins, and we were trying to be like a fine dining restaurant with tablecloths, and like put that hat on, and like stress, lots of hours, Sundays, like even if I wasn't there, it was like text messages, hey, this got screwed up, hey, well, how do I do this shit, hey, like being able to just turn it off like didn't exist. But then COVID hit. And we just decided, hey, let's take a week. Let's take the kids up to my dad's cabin. Let's go fishing. Let's go morel hunting, because it was getting into spring. And, took my son fishing. He caught some bass and crappie. And me and my wife found a ton of mushrooms. And like the kids could like run free.
Which I can go and catch one and then put it in some grass.
We just did it like, country style. We fried everything and had a fish fry, and us and the family just sitting around. It's like, did that for a week, and it was just like refreshing,
It's the roosters the ones doing it.
I never got to spend more time with my family ever than like those first few months of COVID. It's like, oh wow, I like actually know my kids' personalities, and like, they're not just seeing me on Sunday when I'm like dead tired and I can't do anything. But I was like, maybe this would be a good time to like do a side thing on my own. I was kind of like, if it's gonna happen, I'm in my late 30s, I need to like, make this happen. So, I started a little company, and I was like, maybe it would be catering, maybe it would be this, but it was like, let's do a pop-up restaurant.
Right in your wheelhouse. Maybe a little bigger.
But the greens are decent too.
Yeah.
Guess you'll start being able to give me some greens.
On the carrot top?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're still petite. They'll get big guys this winter.
We did these farm dinners where I just would set up a tent, had a charcoal grill and an induction burner, and like I did a chef's tasting menu. They provided all the produce, and I did all the cooking work. And we started off by selling tickets to that. And the last dinner, it was so cold, we had to it was in November, like early November, and we had to put people inside of the greenhouse because like it was cold outside. And Ryan had bought a 3-compartment sink that he had set up outside, and like it was so cold that like we couldn't like wash the dishes because like the water was so cold, and like our hands were like freezing and everything. And I was like, well, this is interesting. I was like, I need to continue this somehow. But that's how we started, Root was that way, doing these pop-ups. And then that conversation led to me renting out Kate's Coffee to, kind of do my own thing. I was working, my normal 60, 70 hours a week at the restaurant. And then I would, like run down here to Kate's Coffee and prep at like, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was finding myself like very excited. This area with just the natural beauty to me is enough to bring people here. But then you throw in like the wineries and the wine and the rich history and winemaking here, and you would almost think you were like 100 miles away from any big city. I walked into a coffee shop and turned it into a restaurant in like 3 weeks, and had a lot of help from my mom and dad and my father-in-law and mother-in-law. And my wife, she was on spring break, so she painted the whole place. And you can't build what we have in this building. When I came in here to have a coffee with Randall and talk about my pop-up, I was just kind of like, wow, this is what a really cool building. It's a house, right? So it's like we're gonna treat people when they walk in the door like they're guests in our house. For me to be able to come in here and create something as far as food, and then have the team that like cares every day, really cares. It's just a perfect mix of everything. The whole idea was started because we were going to do this on the farm. It goes back to like people and the roots of dining. In years past, people had gardens and farms, and they raised things and they ate and they canned, and that was like how families survived in those times. And we've really turned into like a grocery store society where most people don't know where the food comes from, and it's not how it was meant to be. And there's like this nostalgia of like the big family dining table with 10 kids, and everybody had a part in the meal, whether it was the person cooking it or the person on the farm or the person that was gardening or the kids pulling the weeds or collecting the eggs. And like that's the root. That to me, that is the true root of food and produce and dining and just the idea. Family, yeah. I mean, it's all looped in. work harder now than I did back then. But it's working for yourself, you know. I think it's been the best move that I've ever made, personally. I think for my family, you can't really control when opportunities fall in your lap, you know. You just have to decide whether or not it's time to take the plunge or not. And I did.
Yeah, very. Wow. Should I do like this and like hide?
Like yeah, like looking around.